Thank you, everybody, once again for attending today's lunch or brunch and learn for overcoming barriers to internship success. Our mission here at the Carroll Center is to learn with you, grow with you, collaborate, and of course, begin to learn some new things, help increase everybody's awareness on breaking barriers and promoting success and independence. Today, we are looking at a brief overview of the importance of internships in career development. We're looking at challenges that are often faced by young adults in general, with an emphasis on unique barriers for those individuals who are blind or visually impaired. Right? We can all recognize perhaps a barrier to our own growth in the start of our careers, some barriers that we may have faced, but we recognize that there are additional barriers for those who have a visual impairment. So we are giving the example that our students need more structured experiences since they are not able to learn through observation. So these structured work experiences for both soft and career skills are really critical, right? So often we think about the ability to go tap into prior experiences or exposure, whether they be visual or, actual physical. A good example is I may have never personally ironed a shirt in my entire life, but I watched my mom iron, or perhaps I watched someone ironing on TV. And so when it was my turn to iron myself, hey, I know that it's hot and I know roughly how to use it. But if I am a person without vision, I do not have those visual memories or visual exposures. And so it's important that we give those structured experiences so folks can gain all these different skills. So today we're going to start off by introducing 6 key barriers that can potentially hinder someone's positive experience in an internship, as well as looking at strategies for promoting success. These 6 areas that we've identified, by we, I mean Brian and myself, self-advocacy, orientation and mobility, technology, workplace social integration, time and task management, and finally, understanding workplace expectations. So we're going to start off with some barriers to self-advocacy skills. Go for it, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, Tina. I'm super excited to be here with everyone today. We have a group of people in the screen reader user tether training program who are heading off to an internship just in May with Fidelity. So as you all know, internship play a critical role in ensuring success for people entering the workforce or re-entering the workforce, whatever the case might be. Internships are a great building block for them to get into the workplace, and it's a great resume builder for them as well, as they learn all these critical skills. The first barrier we're going to be talking about is self-advocacy. For a lot of our young people, that might be the first time that they've ever had to talk about their disability or describe their needs related to their disability. For most of their life, they might have had a teacher of the visually impaired, a special ed teacher, or a professional, someone who worked alongside them. The parents probably advocated for their needs in their IEP meetings. When you head off to the workplace, those kind of adult support disappear. So for a lot of our young people, the first time that they might have to express what kind of accommodations that they need in a workplace setting, they also might not even know what they need in a workplace setting. If they've never received a PDF that's in a accessible format before, they probably don't know that they need to leverage OCR technology to be able to convert that PDF to something that they can read and use in the workplace. They're using new technology to support their needs in the workplace, and they're advocating for themselves for the first time. And even for those of our clients that are on the older side, they might not feel comfortable describing their visual disability. And so working with them, finding a way that they can express their identity, disability identity in a way that's comfortable for them is a critical skill as well. But I'll hand it back to Tina to talk about some of the ways we can work around these barriers.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. So one thing that we can do is obviously teach those assertive communication and self advocacy skills, right? So we're thinking about, I'm realizing that there's a typo. It says communication and self skills. I don't know. It's like I updated this again yesterday afternoon, huh, Brian? I should have checked my typos. Apologies, everybody. But we want to think about our expanded core curriculum and think about those different core areas and teaching how to be more assertive. We're looking at providing practice and explaining their disability and identifying accommodations to supervisors and coworkers. Right, so can your student be involved in their IEP? Can they help with their PLEP A or PLEP B and identifying the various accommodations that they utilize? As a student is going from 10th to 11th to 12th grade, how much can they begin doing on their own? Are we able to take 1 step, 2 steps, maybe 10 steps back? Remove some of those some of the support that we've just kept in for their success. It felt comfortable. It felt good. Oh, a 1-to-1 aid is so lovely. You know, oh my goodness, of course I can photocopy this for you. But how do we take a few steps back and say, do you know how to use a copy machine? Do you know how to enhance this on your own? And begin to work that in. So as students are going off to their internships, they are able to do a lot of these skills that perhaps a 1-to-1 aid or a TBI has done for them on their own, right? We want to think about putting ourselves out of a job. Not really, but right, but it's what's in the best interest for our students. And we can always look at how could we role play different workplace scenarios to really build a student's confidence in personal interactions. Feel free. I know we haven't, you know, provided any earth-shattering ideas quite yet, but please feel free at any point during our lunch and learn to hop off mute and ask us any questions. We are here for you, and we want this to be a really great opportunity for everybody to ask questions. So feel free to jump in. Our next slide is orientation mobility. Tell us, Brian, what are some of the barriers?
Yeah, there's a lot of barriers with orientation and mobility. Almost by definition, a new workplace is going to be an unfamiliar setting for our blind and visually impaired students or clients. They assumably will be going to this place for the first time, and so they have to learn a whole new area. And it's not just enough that they learn from the front door to their desk and back again. That's a great route to learn and know. But they're also going to have to learn where are the fire escapes, where are the restrooms, where's the cafeteria to have lunch. For me, it's going to be where's that Keurig coffee maker. But I know I'm going to need that around 1 o'clock. And thinking about orientation mobility as well, how are they going to get to work? How are they going to get from work? For a lot of them, this might be the first time that they're thinking about transportation, public transportation, and getting themselves to and from different places out in the community without the support of a bus driver or a parent dropping them off at school. So thinking about all those different components is really critical. And I'll hand it to Tina to talk about some of the solutions.
Absolutely. And I think in addition for you, Brian, right, not just where is that Keurig, but if I were to have Uber Eats drop off a coffee for me, right, where should we tell drivers to drop off our coffees and can you get to that drop off location? And if a Uber Eats driver says, hey, I left your coffee at a bench, do you know where that bench is? Just a fun tip. We have our students who are with us during the year order Uber Eats probably more frequently than they should. And we find delicious packages all over campus. And it's so important to know where all those fun drop-off locations may be. So we want to encourage pre-placement visits for familiarization. We want to encourage our potential interns to work with the comms and really learn the route to and from the workplace, but also within the workplace, right? Just like Brian was saying, entrances, exits, restrooms, workstation, break room. And also, where are there local coffee shops? Where might colleagues be walking if it's in a neighborhood like area? Where may they be walking on a lunch break to go grab Chipotle? Are there restaurants local? And possibly learning some of those as well. We also want to look at developing the confidence that they need for utilizing public or paratransit or ride sharing, and also really knowing, um, where those drop-off locations may be, if it is on the within um, the organization itself, right? So if they're coming, I'm thinking to the Carroll Center, do they know, oh, the door is blue, drive me up towards the technology center that has glass doors. So noting and knowing some of the identifying features of their entrance or exit so they can better describe where they are hoping to be dropped off is very, very helpful. We also always want to practice emergency preparedness, like locating fire exits, perhaps an AED or any other emergency items. So our next area is looking at technology skills. What are some barriers for a successful internship placement in terms of technology, Brian?
Fantastic. I'll try and not go too long on the topic. For
Oh,
those of you
go
who don't
for it.
know,
Go
I'm
for it.
uh, I'm a certified assistive technology instructional specialist, so I can talk about the topic all day. Um, there's a lot of barriers when it comes to technology. The everyday workplace is increasingly becoming more technology dependent, especially since post COVID pandemic. The expectations of people in the workplace, your technology fluency is significantly higher than it used to be. The average work person employee is expected to know about 12 different software programs. So that's a lot, especially for our clients who are not assetting technology programs in the typical visual way. People who are using various technologies, whether that's screen magnifier programs, screen readers, braille displays, and other assistive technologies that they might be using in conjunction. So the other thing that's a huge barrier for our clients is not just whether or not they know different software programs, whether or not they know their assistive technology. It's also typing speed. Most workplaces have an expectation of a minimum of 40 words per minute. And that's a minimum. Uh, Depending on your job and your occupation, it might be higher than that. If you are working a customer service role, administrative assistant role, it can actually be higher. It could be close to 60 words per minute. So it's really important that we're getting people to work on touch typing, which is a non-visual way to know how to type, and it's also the efficient way to type on a keyboard. We should also be expecting them to know how to use their various assistive technology and workplace technology. And I'll let Tina talk a little bit more about some of the strategies for how we can best support our clients with those.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. So we want to think about technology assessments. We want to assess a person's readiness. A client may say, oh, I cannot wait to go to work. I am so excited to go gain employment in accounting. Cannot wait to become an accountant. And they may have these great ambitions and these incredible goals for themselves. But before we work towards those goals, we need to see how realistic is an internship, right? There's nothing worse than setting a student, a client up for, I don't want to say failure, but let's say not success, right? For not having a successful practicum or internship. So noting going through the steps and fully assessing a client's technology readiness is so key before exploring any avenues for an internship that will have technology components. We want to also conduct an accessibility audit of the software that could be used during their internship. For example, if you're in the medical field, you could be using, oh, what's the name of that software, Brian? That's not accessible at all.
Epic.
Epic. Yeah, there we go. Epic, right? Epic is not very epic, okay? It is not accessible. And so if somebody were to come to you and say, I cannot wait to work at XYZ hospital, I am going to be a great computer technician, that may not be an appropriate placement. And so looking at the software is so important. We want to make sure these folks going off to internships are familiar with the standard tools, Microsoft Office, Google Workspace, or whatever that industry specific trade software is. We're not using iPhone notes. We're not using text messaging. We're not just sending emails. We really need these additional pieces of software.
Tina,
Oh, go ahead,
sorry,
Daryl.
sorry. This is Daryl in Montana.
Hi, Daryl in
So
Montana.
I just want to go back to your accessibility audit of the
Yeah.
software programs. One of the questions that I'm curious of you and anybody else that's on this call, one of the problems that we run into is we have employers and we have other people that are interested in hiring some of our clients, but oftentimes they have proprietary software. And everybody's got their own app now these days that does something special, and they don't want their competitors to know about it, and those kinds of things. And so the only thing we've been able to offer those employers is like we'll have our VRTs sign like an NDA, or something along those lines. But is there any other tricks or things that you guys have heard of that have made employers go, oh yeah, no, this is good. We can do some, we can have your VRT come in and help with accessibility on this, that kind of stuff. Is there anything you guys have seen success with?
Yeah, this is Brian. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Oftentimes, the companies they want some kind of NDA, or they'll let you well, it's a software program with someone from the IT department sitting side by side with you. Um, so that works as well. The third solution we've come up with is looking at the VPAP information. For those of you who don't know, that stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. And it's a lot of software program nowadays will write up a report called a VPAP that says what's acceptable and unacceptable about their software program. Depending on the third party person doing the testing, it could be accurate or inaccurate. But it at least gives you more information than you have otherwise. But I'll open up to the audience, see if other people have a solution that they found, but I know that the difficult topic.
I think we're all speechless because that was a lot of technology jargon that I like to think I know my things, but this is an area, Daryl and Brian, that I just don't know. So
Okay.
thank God Brian's here.
Yeah, this is Daryl. Is it possible for you to send me an example of what you were talking about, Brian? Just so I like, because I think that's a good one, right? Because that's something that I could give to my assistive technology specialist, or I could give to my VRTs that they can offer to the employer and be able to say, hey, if you have this, then that it'll give us a rundown, give us a better idea where we can at least start from.
Yeah, of course. Tina, maybe we can send it out in our post email.
I love that. Yep. Yeah, Daryl, I don't know if you attended our first lunch and learn. It's okay if you didn't. We're
No, I
not we're
didn't.
not upset by it. But what we will do is we are going to send a follow-up email at the end of this, and we'll make sure that that example is embedded in that email. So just be on the lookout.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, our pleasure. Thanks so much. I feel like I was in the middle of maybe talking about some of the strategies. So we would also look at ensuring proficiency with all of the relevant software that an intern will need, making sure they know how to use these screen readers, right? That they have all the tools they need before that placement. Preferably as well, that they are training and learning how to use whatever device that they will then be using. Nowadays, laptops, they may be bringing their own personal laptop. So can they receive the relevant training for their internship success? The laptop that they'll be using at that intern. And of course, always conducting mock scenarios using task management tools or workplace systems so they can get practice. A fourth barrier to potential internship, success would be workplace social integration. So go for it, Brian.
Yeah, the wonderful topic. Um, so, imagine you're someone who's blind or visually impaired. You've gone through elementary, middle school, high school. You might be the only blind or visually impaired person in your school, but everyone knows who you are and what you're capable of doing, and everyone knows you. Your first day of your internship might be a totally different ball game. You might be the only blind, visually impaired person, and now you don't know anyone, and they don't know how to interact with you. Because you might be the first blind and visually impaired person that they've ever met in their life. So that can be very challenging to navigate. It can be very isolating for people who are blind and visually impaired starting off with their internship. Um, and there's a lot of things about the workplace that can make it even more difficult to integrate, uh, such as clothing attire. They may not know on the first day what's an appropriate clothing attire for different workplaces. You could be heading off to a tech company where the clothing is very casual and you can just wear t-shirt and shorts or whatever you're comfortable with. You could be heading for a financial role that really required shirt and tie, dress pants, and anything in between. So really working with our clients is going to be critical around this area, not just for their own comfort, but also for their success in the internship. And I'll hand it off to Tina.
Yeah, so true. We really want to look at developing confidence and confidence building workshops for interacting with peers, facilitating mentorship or peer networking opportunities. So can they work with other peers and meet other peers who are also looking at going to their first internship, or possibly working with someone who just completed a successful internship to talk about strategies and what was helpful for them. Something that is very often overlooked, but discussing strategies for accessing body language and nonverbal cues. So frequently, students who are recently graduated or coming out of high school or college, maybe they've had support from teachers, from family, from friends on like, oh, didn't you know he's yawning? Oh man, he's laying back. Obviously he's tired, or man, we don't want to talk right now. And they have friends to help interpret that body language or to discuss what's going on. It's a very informal, or they've been involved in many informal group settings. And now we're looking at going to that internship, that first work placement, and for possibly the first time, they're surrounded by unfamiliar folks, but they're also like peers, right? They may be similar in age and doing the same tasks. And so interpreting that nonverbal body language and cues is really difficult because they don't have anybody interpreting that language for them. And so learning strategies can be so helpful to being a really good communicator. They can conduct online research to learn about work culture. So I know what our culture is like over at the Carroll Center. It's fun. We have a lot of fun. Every company has a different culture, a different feel. As Brian was saying, workplace attire, how I dress on a Monday or how I dress from working from home versus when I'm giving presentations in person may be different, but we both know what and how we dress for work. Every company is different and every role within a company can also be different. So understanding the levels or types of attire is so important. And lastly, another strategy or looking at better understanding is working remotely. The culture of working remotely, the standards of a remote employee, gaining socialization, chatting with others, working collaboratively. When you're doing that from home can be really hard, especially for our students who may not be self-starters or really rely on assistance for taking that next step, right? The initiation can be really tricky. Working through those barriers and better understanding how they can become a self-starter in the morning and get out of bed and get ready and turn on that laptop because yeah, you may be working from home, but there are still a lot of things that you are responsible for. So that's a strategy that they likely will need a lot of support with and something that we found from our students who do remote internships struggle with greatly. Our fifth barrier to
So Tina, this is Daryl again. Sorry.
no,
Uh,
don't apologize. We love it.
one of the things that I see missing on your social integration, and I just want to ask if this is an appropriate thing. It seems appropriate to me, but
Yeah.
might not be to you. So, like, also employer education, coworker education, right? About, because at least in my experience, a lot of times when we have a blind client going somewhere, there's kind of not a fear, but a hesitancy on the part of coworkers to
Mm,
like get involved, right? What's appropriate? Is it okay to ask, my coworker who seems to be struggling to getting somewhere? They're walking down a wall, but it's a hallway that ends nowhere. And is it okay to ask that person, like, do you need help? Can I help you get somewhere? How to do some basic orientation mobility as a human guide, that sort of a deal. And what's appropriate on their part, just
mm.
to help overcome that fear, right?
Can I ask, Daryl, do you
Yeah.
think that should be on the student themselves who is going to that internship to educate their colleagues?
No.
Or no? So it should be
But
on
I
us. Sorry.
so yeah, so let me maybe I'll backtrack a little bit.
No, I was just
I
curious, yeah, who
I
you were
I think
thinking.
I think it's important for both,
Yeah,
right? I think, one of your first slides was about self-advocacy.
yeah.
And if you have a blind person who's going to work, who's a good self-advocate, they're an amazing trainer, right? They're going
Mhm,
to be able to say, this is what I need because they know their needs better than anybody else.
mhm.
But oftentimes they aren't prepared to do that. And that's where I think staff need to step in and, like, hey, let's just do some employer education. We'll have everybody get together when they have their normal team meeting. We'll, throw in some, blindness etiquette things and different things like that can be helpful. And just to help bridge that gap. And then also, like, that helps in my experience with the social integration, because then you have a client who's working with his coworkers, his or her coworkers, to, like, do some human guide things, or just talking and getting to know people's voices a little bit better, because I know I struggle as somebody who's not blind. I struggle with remembering to announce myself, and those kinds of things in all sorts of settings. And I've been doing this for a while, but I forget those things. And so it's really difficult to remember that people that don't have any experience are, of course, not going to know
No, it's really good.
So, so are so this is Carrie. Just a clarification. So even if the person isn't a great self-advocate, to me, they should be in on that meeting because it starts the conversation. So even if staff or a voc rehab counselor, whoever is helping with some of that training, including that potential student
Oh, yeah.
or intern in there, yeah, definitely, because then they're building skills too. So next time it's easier for them to self-advocate and, you know, making sure they're prepared to answer some questions, I think is important.
Yeah, that's 100%. And they're also part of the team, right? So if there's a
Correct.
team thing, it should be including them. And then also they have preferences, just like we all do, right? They have a preference of, no, I don't want you to touch me. I don't want you to, you know, whatever. I want you to tell me like, okay, you know, left 3, 4 steps, whatever, and that's the bathroom, you know, those kinds of things. Those are the instructions that I would prefer as an employee and a coworker. And I think those are really important for them to, and again, I think that's a great point, Carrie, of just learning to help advocate for themselves in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. I just want to share, Alexis added in the chat. I agree with what you're saying about coworker education. I would also say this is applicable to supervisors. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best things is leading by example, right? So like Daryl mentioned, after how many years you may still forget to walk into a room and say, oh, hey, it's Daryl, right? You know, but always leading by example. So if a student is interning at a new site and can set a good example for themselves when they walk into the room, oh, hey, you know, it's Tina, I'm just entering the room. Or, you know, reminding folks at the end of a meeting when they say notes are going to be sent out in an email, say, oh, I really appreciate it when the notes come in an email because it helps me by doing A, B, and C. I think it could be really, really great to be a part of that. Oh, go ahead.
And this is Carrie. I'd like to point out too, one of the other big things. So I work at a community college and I provide support. I am blind. I've been, 40 years. And so I support students with disabilities on campus. But one of the things I always say to everybody on campus, if you have questions, I'm a safe person, right? Like you can come in my office, we can close the door. You don't have to be politically correct with me. I'll be upfront, I'll be honest, but having a safe space that they can ask questions, because sometimes people feel like, oh, my question is so dumb, I should be more, knowledgeable. But so many people out in the workforce, this may be the first person with a visual impairment they ever meet in their life. And so, creating that safe space where they can ask questions, I think is really important. And, helping people moving into the workplace to realize, what, sometimes you need that, you need to kind of try to create a safe space in case people do have questions. So I think that's really important too.
I agree, and that's not just for the clients and the students, also for managing supervisors, and they might want a safe person to talk to be reassured about certain things that they may not feel comfortable talking to a direct report about. So I think having those spaces where people can talk openly is really critical.
We have another chat, Alexis. Thank you so much for sharing, Alexis. She also wanted to make a comment about the O&M section. I was told by a supervisor that I had a choice. I can resign my job or be fired. Wow. Oh my gosh. Said this because he felt he did not have good O&M skills. I was taken back. I share the story because it is so important for students to have good O&M skills. The good is perceived by the sighted people. The supervisor had a relative who was my O&M teacher, but I think the relative was telling him things about my O&M services that he should not have been sharing. Oh my goodness. Alexis, that's crazy. I'm so sorry that happened. Yeah, good O&M skills are so important. I'm going to go over to our fifth barrier, which is time and task management. So, Brian, why don't you take it away with the barriers and then I'll follow up with strategies.
That sounds great. So I think we all struggle with this one at times, blind or sighted. or visually impaired, keeping track of time and managing our tasks in a way that's productive, I think is really critical and difficult at the same time. For our students who are blind and visually impaired, the internship might be the first time where they had to manage their own time and their own schedule without someone looking over their shoulder every day, every hour, and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. In the school setting, oftentimes there's a clock that rings, and then you head off to the next thing, and so a lot of that is done with the support of clock and bells in school or teachers assistants in school that might remind you of certain things that you need to get done and certain tasks. You might bring home a homework binder where everything's written out and your parents review that with you and make sure you're doing your homework every night. Well, that doesn't really happen in an internship setting. Uh, the supervisor will likely expect you to manage some of your time and tasks on your own and independently. So it's a really challenging part of the internship for our client, as well as making sure that they're budgeting their finances as well. Tina mentioned earlier about Uber Eats. It might be the first time that they actually have money to spend on Uber Eats. So thinking about how you can organize your budget, your paycheck every week in a way that you don't overspend, and make sure that you are able to be successful. I'll hand it off to Tina to talk about some of the strategy to be successful.
Yeah, of course. I think the biggest strategy is to back up, take a step back, take 3 steps back, take 25 steps back. The more we can remove ourselves from providing support in all areas of time management, the better. So we shouldn't be looking at a student who is graduating in June of 2025 and saying, oh, shoot, I, as a paraprofessional, have reminded XYZ student about every quiz and homework need. We should be removing ourselves as soon as we feel appropriate and backing up. So that way there's not a severe cutoff or a severe dip in that support, but it happens gradually. We also want to teach how to prioritize. I think a lot of students who we see who are going into their first internship with us often don't know what is most important. They wake up and they think, I'm late. And they can't prioritize brushing their teeth versus, putting on XYZ outfit. There are just so many things going on and they can't stop, take a deep breath and think, I'll grab an oatmeal bar instead of making an omelet like I wanted to. They just have, well, I was going to do this, so I still need to. And let's stop and think about our priorities. Maybe you usually take paratransit, but instead today you're going to do rideshare. And that may hurt your wallet a little bit, but that's what you're going to have to do to get door to door more quickly. And instead of making that grand breakfast that you had in your mind, yeah, you were really looking forward to it, but guess what? We have to prioritize what are the biggest needs, and that's getting to work on time and looking polished. And if you are not able to pack that lunch because you didn't do it the night before, again, what's the consequence? You may either have to be hungry or use Uber Eats and again, spend that extra money. So it's having those consequences, but learning what's going to happen. We also want to talk about, talk about accessible banking methods for financial health. I love the posts that I've seen online. I don't know how to file my taxes, but thank God I know what Pythagorean theorem is, right? So we focus so much on all these, teaching to the test or making sure all the different teaching standards are met. But do our students know how to bank? And they use their own credit card, debit card? Do they have these cards? And can you as educators, TDIs, I don't know who's in this meeting, both rehab counselors, are you able to help support your student who's about to get their first internship? That will then lead to that first job Teach them about accessible banking. What apps are best? What banks are best? Do they know the difference between debit and credit? And what is debt? How does debt follow a person, and what can that do to their financial future? These are all things that we want to make sure folks are able to get support in before they go to these internships. All right. So Adam just wrote, when I got my most recent internship, the agency it was through wanted to get O&M before I had a start date. And I had to go back and forth between my VR counselor and the program director for several months. So Adam, thank you for sharing. You were able to go to and from your new internship a few months before to really practice that route. So that is awesome. I'm glad that you were able to have that O&M put in place before your start date. Thanks for sharing. And Alexis just added, thank you so much, Alexa. She wrote, something else students should be taught is how to get stains out of nice clothing. I'm low vision and dressed nicely for presentations. I arrived at work nicely dressed, was told I had a blue toothpaste stain on my t-shirt. I had no idea. Someone was able to take me home so I could change into something different, but at strategies like this, I would have worn a nice white shirt after removing the stain. Ooh, so now you're talking my language. So Brian's our tech guy. You talk to me about stains. I will tell you how to find a stain, remove a stain, any type of stain. I'm a personal management theme. So one great strategy that we teach would be to carry small safety pins. If you ever think you may have a stain, you want to safety pin the inside of your shirt so only a small little bit of that metal is showing, or maybe not showing at all, but you know from the inside of your shirt where that stain is. So after you remove your shirt, launder it, possibly spray your stain with whatever is the best stain remover for that type of stain. When you pull it out of the washer dryer, you know which shirt was the one that was stained, where exactly that stain was, so you can use, not ChatGPT, what am I thinking of? Be my AI, be my eyes, to say, hey, is this shirt still stained right here? And you can also use those same tools before you leave for work each day to say, is my shirt clean? Are there stains on my shirt? What's the color of my shirt? All of those different strategies now exist, but that's my favorite strategy for locating and keeping tabs on where that exact stain may be to have help identifying if it's still there. So our last barrier is understanding workplace expectations. So go for it, Brian. And just a time check, it's 12:49. So we only have 10 minutes left. So thanks everybody for staying with us. I know it's all right. We'll fly through the rest of the slides.
All right, we'll speed run through this. They say in the video game world, workplace expectations and unspoken rules. There's a number of unspoken rules in the workplace. One that I've been coming across a lot lately is if an office door is closed, the expectation is that the person is in a meeting or otherwise can't be disturbed. Teaching these rules is really critical for people who are blind and visually impaired who might not be able to have all the visual information, be able to interpret between the lines. For instance, if someone's in a hurry and can't really talk, how do you interpret that information? And there's so many unspoken rules in the workplace, but I'll hand it off to Tina for strategy.
Absolutely. So some of that is that nonverbal communication again, looking at how can I, as someone who's blind or visually impaired, better understand and read nonverbal cues. We want to look at simulating workplace scenarios during pre-internship training, creating checklists of professional behaviors and expectations, like punctuality, what is that dress code, and professional email communication. And one thing that Brian and I were chatting about is the importance of thank you emails after an interview, whether it's an informal interview or practicing interviews, or it is the interview for that internship, making sure they send a thoughtful, personalized thank you email at the conclusion of that. We had some frameworks for interview processes. I'm just going to go quickly through them. We want to look at preparing our students for that interview. We want to look at disclosure and ADA, making sure that they understand the everything that's involved around disclosing their disability and the American with Disabilities Act, if they're not already very familiar with it. We want to look at their different skills and accommodations that they may need, and how are they able to share specific examples, preparing their elevator speech, doing mock interviews, and how can we and they as well reassure employers about what they may need or actually not need. And lastly, we want to look at how can we help you. If you on this call or know somebody who's looking for an internship opportunity, we do provide those here with us at the Carroll Center. From June to August, we have internships in areas such as healthcare and science, like biotech, and with a low vision focus. We have internships in the area of arts and humanities, working at museums, and nonprofits as well. We would love to chat more with you. Obviously not today because our lunch and learn is almost over, but applications are open. We are currently interviewing students for our open internship slots. We're always excited to help broaden students' horizons and give them the opportunities that they need and deserve to have really meaningful careers. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name's Tina and my colleague Brian Switzer here. We are ready to answer any questions that you may have. Oh, just kidding. There's one more slide. Ages to apply, 18 to 25 from any state for our internships. They must have a laptop that they are able to use proficiently, right? As we mentioned, you have to have really good tech skills to have a successful internship. Must have good orientation mobility skills, be able to travel independently, possibly using public or rideshare, the ability to work independently and also within a team, and they must be highly motivated. The students who will come to us for this internship, they will be provided room and board. They'll live on a nearby college campus dormitory that we rent out for the summer. They'll be able to utilize the college campus like their dining hall facility, which is an excellent practice for anybody who may be going off to college. They'll be able to live in the dorm with other students who are also visually impaired and learn about other careers and different vocational seminars, and of course, gaining professional experience. We also have an internship program for any emerging professionals who are looking at getting into the VRT, vision rehab therapy field, CADIS field, certified assistive technology instructor field, certified orientation mobility specialists, or TDIs. If you know someone who is 19 to 25 and is blind or visually impaired themselves, currently enrolled full or part-time, or possibly a recent graduate who is looking to get into this field, Brian and I both know it's really hard to get an internship, whether you're sighted or visually impaired. It's a small field, and we really want to do our part to support individuals who are visually impaired and want to get into this field. We thank you and we need you. We need you to be part of this field. So please let us know. We are currently as well interviewing students who are looking at getting into the profession. So now I will say thank you. Open it up for questions, and I am going to hit stop recording.